To Coffee Talk. This is episode 4. We already have 4 episodes. Welcome to Coffee Talk. My name is Anthony Pica. This show, of course, is all about helping the new and upcoming voiceover artists grow their business, sidestep all the crazy things that I seem to step on while drinking coffee. I mean, really doesn't get any better than that. Welcome to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about the importance of reading out loud skills and how this can really change, I think, your voiceover destiny, if you will. I, for starters, I sucked at it when I first, I really did. I sucked at it. It was awful. By the way, if you're coming in, make sure you say, your name in the chat, where you're coming from, especially if you're on Facebook, because, Facebook doesn't share your name. So make sure you just, say your name and where in the world you're from. It's always fun to meet everybody and mention your name and where in the world you are. We always seem to have people from all over. So that's pretty awesome. So talking about reading out loud skills, I think as the more I do voiceover, the more I do this, and the more people I work with too, it's so evident to me through my own journey and working with others that, reading out loud, this skill cannot be, the importance of this skill cannot be overstated. When I first started in voiceover, I of course, I come into this. I'm an actor. I've been a live stage actor my whole life, a director, a writer. I had been a voice act or an acting coach, and I toured around the country. And I was like, so excited to find voiceover, but I thought this is going to be a piece of cake. You know what I mean? When it comes to being able to perform, I just didn't know the technical stuff. So I was like, that's going to be my biggest hang up. And what I found was that I really sucked at reading out loud someone else's words 1 to 2 times, like reading out loud for the first time, and A, not making any mistakes, B, performing to my fullest that I could with just having read something for the first time a few moments ago. Or even more so, trying to take an audiobook and perform that audiobook in a way that it made it seem like I had practiced and I had all this time to perform. As stage actors, and even some extent screen actors, and I would even say screen actors have a little less, but they or have a lot less probably than stage actors. But and it depends on whether you're in repertory or not. But point is that you usually have a couple of weeks at least to memorize your lines, rehearse your lines, get direction, work with your ensemble. You have time to consider it. What we do, we don't. We get a script and we've got to perform right away. And I think that because of this, one of the major skills that we have to have is the, being able to read out loud very well. So I messed up a lot, meaning like when I first started, every other sentence, I would screw up. I would screw up a word, then I'd have to stop, and then I'd have to start over again. And, I'd have to consistently fix, these issues, and I could never get my performance, I could never get a good feeling going because my tempo, my pacing was always like, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop because of that. And I realized, I thought to myself, what is wrong with me? Why am I struggling so much with reading out loud? And what is the issue? I shouldn't be having this much trouble. And I think that's where I realized that everything I had done, and by the way, too, I've been a teacher for years and years and years, where I'd, got up in front of a classroom and I spoke day in and day out. So, I mean, I never had an issue speaking in front of people, but what I realized was that I had not done public speaking from a standpoint of, again, reading someone else's lines or even my own lines, but reading them like a speech, reading a speech and giving it. I had not done that. I'd done it once or twice, but never, enough. And I think so because of that, it was a big, big challenge for me when I first started my business. I'm interested to see if this is a challenge for you guys. I know a lot of people I work with, they struggle with this too. It's very frustrating, right? So some of the things that I had to do to solve because again, if you can't read out loud with any sense of longevity without messing up. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to mess up, right? We all mess up sometimes, especially sentence structures. Sometimes the grammar we get from the people we're working with is not always the best, or there's something that definitely elicits something that's like a screw up. But in general, we should be able to work through a script, get the idea and the feel for it, even after reading through it one time or so, and be able to perform without messing up a lot. And there's nothing worse than going into a live session and, going into a live session and then having, you mess up while people are listening to you and trying to direct you. That can be quite embarrassing. And again, not being able to take any sort of, make any sort of connection. I do think, what I was saying, not that I'm going in there, but I think Jeremy mentioned something I have, Stephanie Cicerelli. Hi, Stephanie. Welcome. I'm going to go back, but I just looked over there real quick, and she said there's a distinction between public speaking and reading other people's work. The words aren't yours, so it takes a different approach. And I talk about this all the time. And this is, again, reading out loud skills is also about being able to take other people's words, right, and being able to make them sound your own. Here's something that I've learned. You will begin over time. And by the way, the only way you get to this is through coaching, is through time and practice, right, to feel this comfortable. By the way, just on a side note, when I thought about time and coaching, don't be afraid to join a VO's Journey Elite Academy. You had to talk about, because we're talking about the Academy every day too. So we'd love to have you. But these are the things that we talk about in our acting classes, as well as nights on Discord and our live Discord chats that we have nightly. But it's about the idea that you becoming comfortable with telling a story should get to a point where you can insert anyone's words into your story that you tell. This is kind of, I would call it next level voice acting, if you will, maybe advanced voice acting. But if I was to come to you and say, and this is a perfect example, whether you feel like your reading out loud skills are on par. But if I were to come to you and say something like, I want you to tell me a story or give me a feeling, but I want you to use blah, 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 right? I don't want actual words, but I want you still to give me a feeling of a story, give me a structure, but you don't actually need to insert words. I just want you to use blah, 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 all right? And you should be able, to some extent, be able to tell a story. So, if I'm, and I know this might sound silly, but actually it really is something impressive that you should be able to do, because the whole point is we should be able to stick anyone's lines into a tone, into a message that we're trying to relay. And that's where practice comes in, right? Because this is the tones and the things that we're trying to learn how to deliver. So like if I was going to, let's say I want to do like a truck commercial, right? And I'm trying to be a little bit rugged, but full of wisdom. You know what I mean? And I want to use blah, 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 right? So let's see if I can do. So I may, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. I hope I'm recording this, so you get to be like, what is that guy doing? But, hey, listen, we're in a room by ourselves all day. We got to do something to entertain ourselves. And you can do that by saying blah, blah, blah. Is this the only thing that's in here is coffee, right? But the idea is, right, it's funny, but it's a very effective tool. Because the idea here is, and it doesn't have to be blah. It can be whatever you want. It doesn't even have to be something that even resembles a word. But the point is that you begin to learn that your reading out loud skills are just as much about how you relay a story on your own terms, as opposed to the words that are given to you. Now, of course, those words and the directing are what the basis of what we, are going to deliver, of course. But I'm just talking about as you move on with your voiceover career, you will find that being able to relay a message it becomes a lot more about your ability to take anyone's words and turn them into your own delivery, okay? And I think when I first started, I struggled with that a lot because I was always trying to pretend I was someone else or pretend I was always looking for some sort of performance, right? And I do think that comes with being that imposter syndrome that a lot of us feel. Right, you can get into that imposter syndrome. Something that helped me a lot too is when I got involved with a community and doing things like this, or things that we do in the academy. Where we get together and we have conversations like this, and we can open up and talk about it. Because if you don't know that it shouldn't, or that you shouldn't be feeling, or if you don't know that feeling awkward or making mistakes is something that you'll get through, it can really curve your growth in this business. So anyways, this is a topic I could talk about forever. Real quick about reading out loud skills. How do you get better at it? Well, I mentioned practice. I mentioned coaching. But one of the things that I did and really, really got me is that the reading ahead. This is something that I had so many years ago. I bought this book about how to read super fast. I don't know if you guys ever, it was real popular many, many, many years ago, where this guy had come out, and he'd gone on these shows and he was like this speed reader, right? And he'd just, he'd take books and he'd like reading, like he'd be turning a page and reading it like this. And and of course I had always been a slow reader throughout my life. My wife, super fast reader. I was always a slow reader. And, so I bought this book. By the way, this was like 15 years ago. So 15, 20 years ago. This was a long time ago. But anyways, I still had the book. And one of the things that in the book that this particular person had talked about was the idea that, a lot of being able to read faster is reading ahead. So while you're reading, while you're digesting those words, if you will, you're starting to read ahead. Whether it's a word, 2 words, 3 words, a sentence, you're beginning to read ahead. And by reading ahead, you don't ever have an issue knowing what's coming next. Now, I found this to be very hard and very exciting to me because as I started to force myself, so I'd be reading out loud and I would try to read ahead while I was reading out loud. So as the words were coming out of my mouth, I was at least, 3 words, 4 words, 5 words. I started going more ahead, and it became it became a lot easier. It was very uncomfortable at first. If you start to attempt this, which I recommend if you're trying to improve your reading out loud skills, is while you're reading, read ahead while you're reading out loud. It's going to feel really awkward, like really awkward. But don't stop. Keep doing it. And this will blow your mind. All kinds of things changed when I started doing this. Like, for example, my breathing. My breathing changed. Like, so I would, when I was narrating, I started doing audiobooks. I was literally out of breath. I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but breathing is a real thing that we as voice actors have to work on because we're consistently talking out loud, and breathing is not just, it's natural, but when we're reading other people's words, and those words were not written in a cadence that's familiar to us, because they're written in a cadence usually from the author's point of view or whoever wrote it, it can be challenging for us to know where to breathe, where to insert, pauses, things like that. So I was always struggling with breathing. And this is something that really helped that. And really, then I learned why I was struggling with breathing. And that was because as I was reading, my mind was only looking at that word ahead, so I never knew where I was going. I didn't know where the sentence was ending. So because of that, my brain thought, well, I need to insert a breath. It's the craziest thing, especially even when you listen to yourself. I've got all kinds of tips and tricks. Like a crazy trick to blow your mind is get some headphones that are completely noise canceling, even through your own voice, where you can't even hear your own voice, and then narrate. It will blow your mind. If you've ever had an issue narrating, or just narrating consistently without having issues or feeling like things are weird and you can't get your bearings, use noise canceling headphones so you can't hear your voice, but and then narrate, and you're going to be like, oh my, it's so easy. You have no problems reading, you have no problems with breath, you have no problems just going right through the work. And again, there's so many of these things. We mess up so much of our stuff, right? We mess up so much in our minds. It's really fascinating. I'm telling you, you should try it. You'll be like, I can't, I don't, you'll be like, what the hell? But anyways, so again, getting back to this, by breathing, everything started to change. It started to get easier. Again, it was very uncomfortable, but that was something that over time it has helped me to the point where, and I've done videos on it, with the channel, where I'll show myself doing a voiceover, and it'll be just, people be like, how'd you get through it? So, how'd you just did one read or two reads? And that's because of all of that work I did before, where I would take me 100 reads to get through one little thing, because I was always messing up. But over time, and then of course, honestly speaking, guys, the practice, the years now that I've been doing this, I mean, please don't let anyone claim that this is not hard work over time. It's doable, but it is work over time. You have to be comfortable with, again, like I said earlier, the mile of crap between your mouth and this microphone. You've got to break through it over time. There's just something there when you step in front of a microphone. It's like in front of an audience, but it's in front of a microphone as well. Like, this is my microphone voice. You just start to say it. But then when you're like, hey, how'd I do? Was I okay? Same thing with people going out on stage. I'm on stage now. And they walk off stage. Was that too much? It's just like we get caught up in our brains about what a performance should be. Okay. But anyways, that's a practical tip, reading ahead. It'll really help you. It'll be it'll feel really weird. I don't want you to be like, I'm doing something wrong. This isn't right because it feels weird. It feels weird. But give it a shot. Give it a shot. I think you're gonna you'll really like that. All right, you guys. Enough of me jabbering on. Let's talk about you guys and see where you're from. If you got questions, posted in the chat. Make sure you post your name. We got Danny. What's up, Danny from San Diego? It's great to have you, sir. We have Someone from Facebook saying, "Morning AP. What's up?" Remember, put your name in there because I don't know who you is. Jeremy Olivier. Good evening from Korea, Anthony. It's great to have you, Jeremy. Awesome. Woo! Korea. Well, you were here last time, right? Wasn't it like 1 or 2? I can't remember what time you said it was. Wasn't it 1 or 2 in the morning? Stephanie Cicerelli, it is an honor to have you on, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here. Let's see. Scott. Good morning. Good morrow, Scott. From LinkedIn, we've got good morning from Notgurn. Yeah, is that California? Cali? This is Terry. Hi, Terry. Waking me up. Oh, it's early there. That's like 6:49 there, Terry. You were an early riser. It's 10:30, Jeremy. Cool. We've got voiceover. We've got Ryan from Oman. What's up, Ryan? Good to have you. Where's Oman, Ryan? I'm not sure where that is. Let's see. LinkedIn. Hi, Anthony. Oh, that's what it just says LinkedIn user. Let's see. Mark Anthony Smith. Mark on a film base in Yorkshire Dales. Mark, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. John Clark from YouTube. What's up? Richard Badley. See, I got your name right this time. Richard, I remember your name. We had that awesome conversation about you want to do badly done voices. I love that. Richard checking in from New Zealand again, editing some demo material and audition. Just gone 1:30 a.m. Thursday morning. Whoo! Good to have you, Richard. You're a workaholic. I love it. Jeremy, question. I have a strong sounding F in words like finally. Is there a trick or is it something to do on the mastering part? I use Reaper, by the way. Okay, great question, Jeremy. So listen, there is also, and this kind of goes into the reading out loud skills that we're talking about. The first and foremost way you want to change any issues you're having with words, sibilants, strong consonants like F is from you. You want to start with yourself. We can change things in a system. You can change, like for an F, since it's F, you're going to have a very tight, when you go to edit, you're going to have a very tight wave pattern, which means that you can delete some of it, reduce the volume of it using Reaper, right? You can use the 4-point envelope in Reaper to target that specific sound and edit it, and reduce the volume as well as make it smaller. You won't get any clips because it's an F sound, just like F, S, T, things where you're going to have a wave that's a lot tighter together. You can actually delete part of the sound and it won't clip on you. But I would recommend that instead of doing that, you do something more like working on it yourself. So making sure when you say an F, it's a little bit silent, you fade out a little bit different. The same thing with S's and T's or D's at the end of words. Consonants, when we narrate or when we're doing voiceovers, are so much different than when we do them on a stage. I was always taught in my career to project to the back of the house to make sure that person sitting in the back row can hear everything you say. And in order for them to do that, you've got to really punch your consonants. Okay? Finish every single word. And it might sound a little odd to you on stage, but the people in the back, they will then be able to understand it a lot better. But for us, this is the audience member right here. We are in their ear. So we don't need to do that so we can be less harsh. So honestly, Richard, Jeremy, the best advice is to just start working on it yourself, being a little bit less strong with that and just try to practice. But yeah, that's what I recommend. So, you could do both right away. If you're still struggling, you can do it that way in Reaper. But, I would start with you trying to work. Let's see. Stephanie. So this is where I saw Stephanie's distinction between public speaking and reading other people's work. The words aren't yours, so it takes a different approach. Yeah. And again, that's so important to note. That's why we, as our own selves, have to begin to also create our own types of deliveries. Okay. And a great place to do that is to start with the different tones, right? Like conversational voiceover, authoritative, enticing, start going through these different, even descriptive words that we use. Because putting those descriptive words onto something will also give you a baseline for, how to perform something. Okay, Peter. What's up, Peter? Quick question on demos and files. 1, mono or stereo? So, demos and files. So, those are two. Okay, so on a demo, so first off, I always record my voiceovers in mono. When I do a demo, it usually involves music effects, etc. So because of that, it's going to be in stereo. All right. So that's usually when, how we differentiate mono and stereo when it comes to our work. 44 and 100 hertz, okay, is usually the standard when it comes to ACX that they set for voiceover. I usually like to record everything else in 48,000 hertz with a 24-bit rate. You have 16-bit here. Again, that is a standard that ACX is set for audiobooks, but usually everything else I always try to have a higher bit rate. Okay, I like a constant bit rate of 192. That kind of pretty much stays the same. Uh-oh, there's somebody in my house. The dog ran out of the room. Good Lord. They're coming. I don't know who's here. But anyways, so that's how I measure what I do with their Peter, okay? But 16-bit at 44,100 is fine. But the 48,000 hertz, the 24-bit is going to give you a lot more room in the file. And, it's going to be faster, so it should sound better overall. Okay, let's see. Peter says, sorry, didn't see this was particular to reading it out loud. It's okay. Daniel, what's up? Good morning from Morrison, Colorado. Thank you for this topic. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I know it's early there as well. Mark says, sorry, work. Have to step off. Thank you for being here, Mark. Really appreciate it. Let's see. John, what's up, John? I think it feels a lot worse when you mess up reading your own text. Yeah. I was always improv. When I would write my own stuff, I'd end up improving a lot. And I felt more willing to improv because it was my work, Let's see. Mind worker, blah, 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 is a very effective tool. Yeah. And then John says, blah, 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 blah. That would, you imagine if we're all going like blah, blah, blah. Somebody walks in and be like, they've lost their mind. I love what we do. Vanessa says, hey, Vanessa, I love how Anthony just steps out on a limb and improv stuff to model a point and it works. Well, I always was that kind of person, too. If I say, hey, you should do this, and they're like, do you do it? No, I'm not going to do that. Well, that would be silly, right? So thank you, Vanessa. I appreciate it. It's that teacher in us. Let's see. I rock a old soul. I like that name. Hi, it's good to have you. Jeremy, what's up, Jeremy? Good morning. It's good to have you, my friend. Says, I can read ahead, but not necessarily digesting or comprehending what I'm reading. So, Jeremy, I think that, again, when you're first starting out, too, it's going to feel weird. It's going to be awkward. You're not going to actually be able to do much but just trying to read the words. But you will find that everything will start to go up. Your comprehension will go up. Your understanding, your ability to manipulate the words and the phrases will get better. It will get better over time, okay? But you've got to just start the practice. It's like you got to start somewhere. Okay, let's see. John says, how can you learn to read ahead? Well, so the thing is, you first start out with one word ahead. 2 words ahead. The likelihood is that you might already read 1 to 2 words ahead, but you're so used to it that it's second nature to you. But pushing ahead, so when you're reading out loud, right, your job then is to start to look ahead a little bit further. Again, I'm telling you, it's going to feel really awkward, but force yourself to look 2, 3, 4 words ahead, okay, and continue to read and let your mind process it while you're reading out loud. Okay, and it's going to, I can't stress to you enough how because it's not supposed to be natural. So, like, it doesn't feel natural if you've not forced yourself to do it over time. As you do it longer and longer, though, it will become second nature to you, and you won't even, it won't feel weird, but when you're first starting, it's weird. So you have to force yourself to look a couple of words ahead and keep reading. Oh, hey, can you shut that door for me? Yes. Thank you so much. So anyways, that's, sorry, that was Gigi. That's right. This my wife's mother. So that's how I would look at reading ahead, and not to be afraid of it being awkward and weird and uncomfortable. But we'll definitely keep working on it in the academy. I think it's something worth, focusing on because it changed my life. Of all the things that I learned how to do, I would say that those reading out loud skills is one of the most important things for us as performers, because we have to be able to get past that barrier of the words. I know that sounds crazy, right? But if you, for example, give yourself a break. If you are struggling with just being able to perform, you're like, I don't even know where to start in performance. A lot of times it really is just getting better at reading out loud, in a consistent, good pace. Being able to say other people's words consistently, correctly. Okay, then we can focus on the performance. All right, so let's see. Jeremy says, been there too. Zia, hi Zia. I'm sorry, I don't know what that says, but thank you for being here. Zia says, look done, dear host. I'm sorry, Zia, I don't know what it says. I apologize. Jacob says, yes, thank you so much for talking about this. Coming from a music singing background, breathing is super important. And in VO, sometimes I still struggle. Like, what is wrong with me? Yeah, I'm telling you, it can be defeating. It can feel very defeating when you're struggling reading out loud and you don't want to tell anybody. Because, you kind of like, well, I shouldn't be having a problem reading out loud, for goodness sake. I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60. What the hell is wrong with me? You know what I mean? And trust me, most of us go through it secretly. We just don't say it out loud. But I figured, hell, why not? I'm going to tell you out loud. Because most likely if you're going through it, or I go through it, most of us go through it, right? So, anyways, no, absolutely, Jacob. Let's see. iRock says, appreciate the advice. Absolutely. Red Cabin, Joe in Ohio. What's up, Joe? It's good to have you. Jeremy says, yes. Richard says, nailed the reading ahead advice. It will help with longer scripts, too. I learned to read about a sentence ahead when I was news reading, and the breathing came naturally. I would imagine, Richard, that you have to do that, right? And I think that, so again, that's probably where I would think newscasters, people who had to read from a prompter, and you have to read ahead in order to be able to make it sound. And then there's a whole acting part of that, right? Because, these people, besides the improv parts or the interview parts where you might not, where it's a little bit more improv than live, you're going to have to be able to read ahead and also look like they're your words and also react to what you're saying. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely, it's a new skill. Let's see. Ariel, what's up? Good to see you. Good morning. It was a blast chatting with you and working with you in the academy the other night in the Discord. We do live Discords where I get in there and I hop in kind of like this, but it's just for the members, and I answer questions, do critiques and stuff in the evenings in our Discord channel. So great to see you, Ariel. Eric says, what's up? What's up, Eric? Hi, Anthony. Still working on my breathing. Hard to learn new after so many years of the old way being successful. Yeah, I mean, it is not easy, especially, and like I said, the breathing for me took care of itself a lot when I read ahead. But see, it still felt weird because then I was like, whoa, things are different now. Where do I place my breaths? And do I actually need to be so concerned with my breaths? So here's a little tip, by the way, on breaths. Should you leave breaths in or should you take them out? Here's the tip. When we perform, right, there is this idea called suspension of disbelief, right? And it's the same with voice acting, live stage acting, acting on a screen. The idea is that our job is to put the listener, the watcher, into a state where they suspend their disbelief that this is all fake. And they then can allow themselves and their imagination to enjoy what we're saying. Now, commercial work, things like that, where there's shorter things, you know what I mean? It's usually very quick and people, but if we do our job right, okay, people will suspend their disbelief in order to enjoy what we're doing. So where I'm going with this is anything that we do to pull them out of that suspension of disbelief is it's not a good thing. And with breathing, sometimes, all right, we can breathe over the top. Like if you're talking, and you're struggling with your breathing and you go, we've all done it, right? Like we're going like, you get to that end of this, like, and you go on to the next one, right? That breath, and you're like, well, my breaths are natural. Breathing is natural. Breathing is natural. But that type of breathing, okay, is not natural. That breathing is, I'm still working on my breathing sounding natural while I'm recording. So those types of breaths you've got to do something with. And remember, in shorter commercial work, we don't have time to have breaths. Breaths are like nature's rests, right? It's like nature's stopgap to give you a break. I think while you're listening, at least. But in commercial work, we don't need, the music, the videos, that takes precedent to the breathing. So the breathing isn't usually in there. But longer form narration, it makes so much sense to have breathing in there. It's natural. It's a part of it. If the breaths aren't overbearing and sound unnatural, like we're struggling with it. So breathing is definitely, it's a hard thing to get to. And, a lot of times you have to go in and manually reduce breaths. Whatever you do, don't use deep breathers out of any iZotope, which I adore, right, for their plugins with RX9 and 10. RX10 is coming out soon. But I love them, but I don't use them or anyone else when it comes to deep breath. I do everything manually. Okay. There is a little bit of things you can do with an expander, and you can do your own thing and figure out ways to make it go faster on a lower end, right? Because even breaths have a dB level. But the reality in the end is you're going to have to manually take care of breaths. It's the safest way in your audio. So again, the best way to combat that is to start tackling it up front. And a good way to do that too is to start working on more shallow breathing, right? Where you breathe, but it's not loud. These are all things that we as performers and voice actors have to work on. This is a craft and an art and a performance. And there are things that we have to learn and to get better at that performance. Okay. Tim says, hey, pro, good morning from Arkansas. Thank you, Tim. Good morning, my friend. Jay says, hi from Thailand. Awesome, Jay. Good to have you. Jeremy says, thanks, Anthony. That helps a lot. Awesome. Good deal. Jay says, 8:56 p.m. here in Thailand. Cheers to you, my friend. Let's see. John says, my colleagues don't think I've lost my mind. Well, that's good. John says they know. Oh, that's funny, John. You let me right into that one. That's good. They don't think I've lost my mind. They know it. Very nice, John. Evil says, evil leprechaun. Perfect. I love that name. Would it be more beneficial to upgrade from a cheap microphone first or buy iZotope's RX9? Great question. That depends. Honestly, that depends on how good of a sound you're getting with that microphone. Now, listen, I am a firm believer, and I've learned this. I started with a $40 Snowball mic, the ones that are in the ball. Mine was black. I made my pop filter out of old pantyhose and a wire coat hanger. I took the coat hanger part, wrapped it around the boom arm of my mic stand, and fashioned like a odd shaped filter, and put a pair of my wife's old pantyhose over it for my pop filter, and I did a lot of audiobooks that way. Did they sound perfect? Of course not. The sound was not great, but neither was my acting. However, where I'm going with this is I still got the job done. So there are times when but I will say that always with work, upgrading your equipment is, to me, what you should be reinvesting any earnings or anything you make into your business, right? You need to upgrade your equipment, because the better equipment you have, it will make you sound better. It really will. Okay. And it will allow you to do less work. However, I can't imagine a world in which I would not use RX9 or standard. Now, fortunately for me, well, it wasn't fortunate at the time. It sucked. But when I first started, I didn't know about it. So I did a lot manually. So because of that, I learned a lot on how to do this stuff without having plugins, right? But I will say that if your microphone is working at the moment, I would definitely spring for RX. That will help a lot. But if you're good doing it manually and you're having issues with your microphone, you got to get a new microphone then. So it really depends on your particular situation and how much money you have, right? So I think, Isotope's been running $100 off RX9 standard, and I think because they're coming out with 10, soon. So, it's $299. That's a lot, but from the mouthy click alone is worth its weight in gold. Because you do a 10-hour book, you will be there 50 hours just editing clicks out of your work. And when you can click a button and it does it really well. So either one you can't go wrong, but Isotope, like here's a perfect example. I buy Isotope once, I never need anything else again. At least I don't think so. A mic, depending on how much you have to invest in a mic, you might need a new mic later on. I don't know. It's a tough thing. I'm struggling with the answer for you, as you can tell. You could go either way. But again, determine whether or not your cheap mic is working. And if it is working for you, get the RX9. All right, Jay, how long did it take you to overcome the voice in your head when you monitor yourself? It took a while, John, and Jay, I want to be completely honest with you. It took probably 500 to 1,000 voiceovers for me to gain the confidence to say, this is how I want to do it. And I think this sounds the way I should. Even when the person comes back, the person who is purchasing from you, they might come back and say, we want it done a different way. I'm going to disagree with them now. Now, of course, I'm going to do it. I might not say out loud I disagree with them, but I've come to the point where I've done enough, and I've now, a lot of this has to do, too, I think, because I was a director in my life as well, and I had to look, and that's another thing. We're not talking about that in today's session, but a lot of this is you being confident in yourself that you can make those directing decisions. Because remember, we are now the director and the voice actor. We'll get a few directions, but we don't get we don't get a director anymore. They don't. I mean, the budgets aren't like that. So we have to direct ourselves. So in this case, it took me, though, it did take me a year or two. Being with the community really does help you. Getting with coaching really helps you. That's why I love the Academy, and it's another reason I started the Elite Academy, to bring people together in a community so that we can talk about these things, work on them together, so that you're not doing it alone. Because I think when you do things alone, you struggle knowing, am I on the right path? I don't have anyone that can help me or listen to me or give me any advice. I mean, I remember recording some things and I'd have my family listen to it, and they'd be like, and I wouldn't tell them who did what, and I'd have them listen to it, and they always, they would never pick mine. They would always pick someone else's, and I'm like, God, I suck. This is not, it was so, yeah. I laugh back because I look back at my journey, and one day you'll look back at your journey and laugh too about just the trials and the tribulations, the things you went through to get where you are today. But join a community, join a place, and again, even if it's not the Academy, join somewhere where you have people who are like-minded, going in the same direction with you, that can help you, and you can, gain some of their confidence, and make sure it's a positive community. Let's see. Peter says, thanks for clarifying file details. Yes, I was confusing that with ACX standards. And again, yeah, and again, Peter, right, ACX standards, is that bad standards? No, it's not bad at all. I just like to, now I always deliver, higher quality files, outside of ACX. Let's see. Johnson VO Studios. Morning. I finally made it live. It's good to have you, my friend. Let's see. From a Facebook user. I'll put your name in there. I don't know who it is, but he says, good morning from Detroit area, Anthony. Hello, how's the weather out in Detroit? I know hopefully it's starting here. It's starting to get cooler, slowly but surely. Thank goodness it's been so hot. Let's see. I have struggled big time with reading out loud. I have good days and bad days. Oh, thank you so much for mentioning that. Fatigue. Fatigue is a real thing, you guys. I never thought reading out loud, sitting down on, and reading in front of a microphone would be, fatigue would play a part. But my God, it does. It plays a massive part. Perfect example. If you guys ever listen to a VO's Journey podcast and you listen to the first episodes, those were all, I'm like, hello, welcome to a VO's Journey. I don't even think it was called a VO. I didn't even call it that. I was like, well, hi, my name is Anthony Pica. And it was because it was 2 a.m. in the morning after I'd worked all day long and I sounded like a zombie or like I was dead, even though to me, I thought, man, I'm being lively. But I wasn't. And I listened back to those things, and again, I realized too, fatigue, being tired and exhausted, it's a real thing. Okay, and you've got to work on, trying to find times in the day. I find that between the hours, whether you're a morning person or not, between the hours of 10 to 12 for me were some of the best times to perform. Most of us are at work. So when I was working, I was at work. There was no way I could perform. But I found that those were really good times. But I performed between 10, when I was first starting out, 10 p.m. to 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. That's when I had time to work, when I had my full-time job and everything. So I did what I had to do. But I can tell you that fatigue is a big thing, and it is something that we just have to deal with, and we'll get better at as we grow. Let's see. We just did that. Let's see. Ariel, what's up? Ariel says, Evil Leprechaun. After you make sure your space is set up with thick absorption materials, clothes, blankets, acoustic foam, you can focus on a decent mic between $100 to $300, then finally isotope. Cool. I mean, again, all things being equal, you can go either way with all of these things. I will say, and Ariel brought up a good point about your space. Right, because I was thinking about your space. For starters, there's nothing more first that you should do than have a great space, because you can have if you have a crappy acoustically treated space and you get a really expensive microphone, it's just going to make that really crappy space sound even more crappy. Right? Like it'll make the crappy sound just really good crap. I don't know. Anyways. I better drink coffee. All right, Kyle. What's up, Anthony? Thanks for today's nuggets of knowledge. Absolutely, Kyle. You are most welcome. John says, how can you train to shallow breathe? Okay, so force yourself to do it. Okay, so as you're talking, take a shallow breath, take a shallow breath, take a shallow breath, take a shallow. You probably can't even tell I'm breathing. You can hear a little bit of a pause, but I'm shallow breathing. I'm taking a little bit. What you'll find out is that you don't need to take these breaths. But the key too is to read ahead. I promise you, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go through this. But reading ahead while focusing on, breathing a little more shallow will help you a lot. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Word of mouth entertainment. What's up? Good day from Australia. 12:07 a.m. in Melbourne. It's great to have you. Gosh, it's so cool to see everybody from around the world. Quick question. When reading a book for audio recording, do you read a chapter first or a paragraph before editing? Do you read a chapter first or a paragraph before editing? Okay, so when I would do it, because I was really... I think I really got like I really got like ADHD. I could only do a chapter and then I had to stop and edit. There are times when I would be backed up against a deadline that I would end up just having to read through the whole book and let the chips fall where they may. But a lot of times I would just do one chapter at a time and then I would edit it. But what I did though differently than most people is when I first started, again, I didn't have a community I was with. I didn't know what I was doing. So I literally edited everything on the fly. So like if I made a mistake, I kind of modified the punch and roll with, if I made a mistake, I would stop. So this is where I was telling you that I was so frustrated with my reading out loud skills. I would stop, go back to where I'd made that mistake, hit re-record, and then continue on recording. Punch and roll, kind of this idea where, right, you record. Punch and roll really is great, I think, for punch lists, right? Hence punch and roll, because you'd have to punch into the old like tape, right, and then roll in order to get to where to put in the new tape. But for us, right, the idea of going back after you've recorded an entire piece, punching in, giving yourself 3 to 5 seconds of prior narration to better understand how we should sound still makes a lot of sense today. But to me, it didn't make a lot of sense while I was in the middle of narration, because I know how I would sound because I just did it. So to me, it was better to go back and just record over that mistake and then continue on with the recording. So I didn't use punch and roll a lot. I did a modified version while I was recording. So by the time I was done recording the chapter, I'd pretty much narrated, I'd edited, fixed 90% of it. Now, does that mean I didn't miss words? Of course I missed words. So, there is always editing to be done in that sense. But that's where we talked about proofing the other day, right? That's where hiring a proofer can be a godsend, right? Because there's so much, tacking on after you did 6 hours of recording for, let's say it took you 6 hours to get 2 hours of finished work done. Then you're going to have to re-listen to it, another 6 hours to edit it. So now 2 hours takes 12 hours. You guys know. So it is good to work with other people to help you with that. Spread the burden out. Okay. Let's see. Richard says, do you record into iZotope, then edit in other platforms such as Audition? I'm using a Shure MV7 and getting pretty good results for now, even though it's designed specifically for podcasting. I use Audition, and I have all iZotope is integrated into Audition, which it can be in other platforms as well. But I use Audition, and I don't even open up the editor. I don't even use the RX standard editor. I don't need to, because I can do it all through. I have everything bound to my keyboard. I've used it so much for so long now that it's just second nature to me. So I don't actually record in anything but Audition and then edit in Audition and move forward. But my editing process where it is now is, right now you guys are hearing me not just through the RE20, but also my Apollo Twin, which I'm using plugins with the Apollo Twin for pre-processing. So you're hearing me through this where it's also EQ'd for this space and it's compressed. So this is being EQ'd and compressed that you're hearing. Okay, so when I record, same thing with my Sennheiser 416, it's already being EQ'd and compressed when it's recorded. So, the only time I ever turn that off and do something raw is if I'm doing character work, because if I'm screaming or something like that, it doesn't work. But all commercial work, half of it's already done. Then I push a button for a rack that I've built, and then the other half is done, and then I can deliver it. So it's a very fast process for me now. It wasn't when I first started. It took me forever because I did everything manually and I didn't know what I was doing. So I like to try to keep it as simple as possible. I recommend that if you're using something like Audacity, but even Audacity now, you can, if you have RX, you can integrate that into, you can have those plugins in there, right? And you can even create, you can create macros in Audacity to do that for you too, where you press a button and it will do all those things. But if you like, but I do like the iZotope editor too. It's very nice. So you can use that, and it is faster for longer form stuff. So that is true. If you want to speed up your editing of long audio, like audiobooks, that's a good place to be. But I don't. I just use Audacity. However, you're saying I'm getting pretty good results for now, even though it's design specific. Richard, I'm a big advocate for if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Seriously, if it's working, roll with it. That's great. So you might, like, I always thought, why should there be so many different microphones? Why is there so many different things? And the reality is, and I can tell you this also from a live performance standpoint, everybody mixes differently with different, we all mix differently with different microphones. Some microphones sound good for some people, they don't sound good for others, right? And that's because if you look at stats on microphones and how they're built a variety of different ways with different boosts on different frequency levels, and some of them, in different intensities and sensitivities with the diaphragm and all kinds of things. So, if it's working, roll with it. Tim says, I started a new on Fiverr yesterday. My niche is radio imaging and radio TV spots. Should I perfect this area before I try doing other areas of voiceover work? Good call, Tim. So, if you want to only do that, go for it. I would say that right now, radio imaging, radio TV spots, especially on Fiverr, you've got to put for podcasts as well. Because podcasting is the new radio in a lot of senses, right? Because it's opened up to the world. Anyone can do it from their home. So I recommend you add that onto it. But, I think that's also in some senses dangerous, though, to say, should I perfect this area? Because perfection is never attainable. And you are going to, so what I would do this is I would say you've got to set a benchmark. Right? Like if you're clearly thinking about it, like I want to get better at something before I move on to something else. And that's good too. It's important to know yourself. If it's going to bug the snot out of you, you know what I mean? There's also, mental health here to consider, right? Like if it's going to bug you and you're going to be up at night about it, do what you got to do. But set a benchmark. If you don't set a benchmark, like what is that perfection or that, good enough look like for you? Right, because so much of what we do, all of what we do, almost is subjective, right? Except for just some technical things that are going to be the same across the board. But so much of this work is subjective; it's artistic. So I would say set a benchmark, Tim, before you move forward with something, or at least say, okay, I feel comfortable that I can at least produce X, Y, Z. Again, you got to set a benchmark for what you're trying to accomplish, and then push forward to something else. And that way, at least you've satisfied that part of you where you need to get something done right, but then you also feel like, okay, I can handle some other things. And, that benchmark could be how quickly and effectively you can produce something like this. How fast can you produce a spot, right? Do you have, 3 to 5 saved racks that give, with your different imaging assets that you need in order to create a couple of different spots, right? Do you is all that formatted or saved in places where you could, is it, whatever your benchmark is for perfection, you got to make one. All right. Mindworker says, the Academy is a wonderful place for learning and live interaction. I'm so glad to be a part of it. I'm learning so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yes. I mean, we had about 10 people again last night in the live Discord, and it was a blast. We were chatting. I got to review a lot of people's work, because I review work live for people, and we can also have our cameras and talk. You don't have to have a camera, but it's a lot of fun, and it's been amazing, and we continue to grow. So we'd love to have you. There's a link if you'd like to join, and we're doing 50% off the first month. I gotta pay you, Mindworker. I gotta pay you for that recommendation. Thank you. All right. Christy says, so glad you said that about fatigue. I thought I was being lazy, only being able to edit a couple hours at a time. You are not, Christy. Fatigue is a real thing, and it will reduce your ability to be to have energy, and the sound in your voice will change. Because it's exhausted, especially after we work a whole day, right? So it's very exhausting. Hey, everybody, if you're just coming in, make sure you put your name in the chat and say hello. And if you have any questions, let's see. John says, thanks for today. It's been helpful. You're most welcome, John. Thank you, my friend. Samantha, what's up? Hi from beautiful Music City, Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Samantha. I appreciate it. Let's see. I love Nashville, by the way. I've been there a couple times. It's a really cool place. Richard says, thanks for the advice again. You are a legend. Thank you. Time for me to head to bed. Coming up 2:30 a.m. Whew. Might catch you again tomorrow. All right, Richard, thank you so much. All right, everybody, listen, thank you so much for joining today on another Coffee Talk. It was awesome. Please check out Avio's Journey Elite Academy. We'd love to have you. But other than that, you have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will talk to you and see you guys soon. All right, goodbye. Goodbye.